Mr. Leonard, other members of the board. It's a pleasure to be joining you all again this evening. Joined by my colleague, as mentioned, Mr. Brian Godfrey, and we're providing what we're calling an interim update. It begins with revisiting the growth factors on the next slide, or this is correct, thank you. No, give me a second, we'll get on the same page, thank you. We'll begin with revisiting the growth factors that were part of the land use study that we conducted back in 2023. And then I'll hand it over to my colleague, Mr. Godfrey, to speak to the ORAD update and a topic of particular interest. From there, we've also attached your previous out-of-capacity tables that you saw as part of your board retreat, that you've previously seen those. And from there, we'll have additional time for discussion as well as questions and answers. Next slide. Here we go. So, speaking to the bigger picture here and the longer term, we believe that this slide summarizes well where the district is growing. You're on the cusp of unprecedented growth in this district. It begins with that connectivity, as we've heard about U.S. routes, industrial development, which I will not belabor, but is that listed on the slide, residential growth, including in multiple portions of the district. Cannot mention residential growth without in the same breath, of course, mentioning Chatham Park. One of the encouraging things that we've seen that has changed since the last time we've spoken was that the timing of lots and units coming online anticipated from Chatham Park is becoming much more focused. So we're appreciative of that collaboration that we've always had with Chatham Park, but being able to see and have a little bit more certainty about when those lots and units are going to come online is certainly very helpful for us. It's a major step toward knowing when those students are going to show up in your classrooms. From there, we have listed still that water and sewer capacity is a constraint, but it's certainly lifting some in Pittsboro, while it remains to be a constraint still over on the west in Siler City. So with that, I did want to hand it over to my colleague, and he has one note of particular interest that he'll be covering. So for that, I will hand it over to Mr. Godfrey.
Well, good evening. The board received an excellent update on commercial and industrial development in Chatham County. But as you're aware, a big focus for us is on residential development. And so we wanted to take an opportunity to bring to the board's attention a particular project in the town of Goldston with the current placeholder name of Tumbleweed Residential. So many folks may already be aware of this proposal. It is a request to rezone and annex about 800 acres 2 miles south of Goldston to R15 single family. And this proposal has been working its way through the various meetings of the Goldston Planning and Town Boards throughout the summer. But most recently last week at their August 5th meeting, the town of Goldston conditionally approved the annexation petition contingent on the removal of the active mining permits on the site. So while there's not an official date for the formal annexation, staff expects that to be finalized this fall. So at 800 acres with R15 zoning, which represents 15,000 square foot lots, this development could represent over 2,000 homes at full build out. Now, of course, there are still various permits and approvals for the applicants to obtain, but clearly this would be a transformative project for Goldston. The applicant stated on the record that their expectation would be 10 to 15 years for a full build out, and the relevant attendance zones impacted are J.S. Waters and Chatham Central High School. So ORAD will continue to monitor this project along with others as part of our ongoing work.
You said a 10 to 15 year build out. I know there's more hoops to jump through and all that. When can, like Chatham Park, when can we start seeing people moving into a house that can affect us?
The applicant has stated that they hope to begin with phases of 50 lots at a time. Now, assuming this fall they receive formal annexation and rezoning, there are various site and subdivision permits to obtain, construction documents, land infrastructure, but I would expect you could start seeing homes being occupied in 2026 if they're aggressive.
And this is in addition to the other development or two in Goldston too,
Yes.
am I correct on that?
That's correct.
And one other point you might want to mentioned also the price point of what we're hearing for the.
This is not a binding condition of approval, but the applicant has stated that their objective is to have a price point of $250,000 homes. So I'm happy to answer additional questions later, but for now I can turn it back to my colleague, Mr. Doe.
Moving on to the capacity tables that the board has seen before. If we could move to the second one of these. Thank you. I believe you've seen your fair share of these over the past few years. We have 6 presented here, and we'll be on the second one just for a second. Let's see. So for those who are unfamiliar with these out-of-capacity tables, it's a quick visual way of being able to see where the district's facility needs are and where they will be in the future. And to speak from left to right, we have the name of the school, the capacity of the school, the current enrollment of the school, and then out through the next 10 years, we have the forecasted enrollment for each of those schools. The question we get most commonly is, well, what does the coloring mean? The coloring is utilization, so how well the district's facilities are being used in terms of it's just forecasted enrollment divided by the capacity of the school. And that goes all the way out to the right. The brief version that we hear from boards frequently is green is good, red is bad. And I think that summarizes well, where you do see red, that's typically a pinch point area of need as we look forward out over the forecast. I highlight the second version because it includes Chatham Park. It's on the ground now, part of it is on the ground now. It's moving, creating students, so I tend to focus on the versions that have Chatham Park. And the ones that are listed here as brick and mortar in the title just mean that mobile units or modular trailers are not included as part of the district's, as part of the school's capacity. So with that, I did the slightly newer version of these tables is the last two, which are, the schools are grouped by zone instead of by level. That is the other fairly new addition to how this data is being represented. With that, I wanted to ask, are there any questions for me or my colleague?
We thought, and I know things changed, we thought, for example, Perry Harrison was gonna grow faster than it has currently. But I see your tables, it's jumping fairly quickly from now on, am I correct on that?
Absolutely, yeah. As soon as, with the influx of Chatham Park students into Perry Harrison, that will accelerate quickly.
Okay, yeah, I can see it on here.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.